Hello, it's Ruben Avery. Today we're going to be doing a video on Psalms 23. This video is going to be split up into 6-7 different parts explaining the significance of Psalms 23. We're going to be focusing on Psalms 23 verse 1 today, and God's been pouring into my life a lot through this psalm, and I want to share some of the things that He's been sharing with me to you guys. So verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I was driving to a destination, and on the side of the road was a sheep pen. This wasn't any old sheep pen. Inside the sheep pen were sheep. Wow. But it was underneath the sheep pen was something special, because this was an old landfill site. Where the rubbish, all the waste would go, and they built grass over this landfill site for the farmer to use as to raise cattle and sheep on. But I thought, this is no place that sheep should be grazing. Underneath where an old landfill site would be, all the smelly, rotten, whatever underneath, and it's just rotting away. And I thought to myself, Christ doesn't do this. He doesn't lead us to a place where the soil is bad. We see in verse 2 later on that he says he leads us beside still water. We'll get onto that bit later on, but I'm just teasing a few things out. But he doesn't lead us where the soil is bad. Why? Because sheep feed off the grass, and the grass ultimately has to take root in something. So Christ, he feeds us quality food. That food is himself. He says, eat of me in the Bible. I can't remember what verse it is. It'd be up there, wouldn't it? It'd be about eating and drinking, about communion and taking in the word of God and things like that. But I thought that he doesn't lead us to those places. He leads us into quality places where we can take root, where our seed can be planted in the ground and there's healthy soil to nourish that. It was just a thought. I thought, yeah, he doesn't do that. There's a verse which says he pastures his flock among the lilies. And lilies were used for medicinal reasons. Firstly, they were used to treat heart condition. They've done a research paper. The research paper, medicinal properties of lilium. I'm guessing this is the scientific name for the lily. But I thought it was interesting how the research was done in Israel. Beersheba and in the Negev, which is the desert. Just thought that was really interesting how we're talking about lilies and how lilies are in the Bible. It'd be interesting to see if it's the same Hebrew word for that, but I don't know. That's for another video. So this is the research paper about how lilies have medicinal properties. If we scroll through here we go. The medicinal properties of the phytochemicals present in the lily. I can't even say that, I'm not even going to attempt it. But here we can see cardioprotective, so for the cardio, so the heart. So we can see there, and there's a load of properties there. One thing I've also found interesting is pro-wound healing. His words bind us up. He binds up the brokenhearted. His words are from the lips of his mouth, which are healing, which have those healing properties. Those words he speaks over us. So I thought that was quite an interesting link in lilies, how he pastures his flock among the lilies. And you can see within those lilies there's so many phytochemicals, so many properties within there for healing. But another thing about Psalms 23 verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. There's a word there, it's the word is. So often we think the Lord could be my shepherd, or the Lord, if I do this, he's my shepherd. But it is, because it's no matter what we do, he's always our shepherd. And it's sometimes hard to depend on that, isn't it? It's hard to think, actually, yeah, through the different seasons of life, he's always my shepherd. That gives me great comfort, great joy, and great peace, doesn't it? Because he's always my shepherd. In the ancient Near East, this is when this psalm was written. Ancient Near East, A-N-E. I don't know why it's called that, but maybe it's called that because it was ancient and it's near the east. Maybe. But you can look it up. Don't click off the video. But ancient Near East, this is the time when David was writing that's what we call ancient Near East, the psalm, And quite often in that time, in that culture, a shepherd was used as a metaphor for king. So the Lord is my shepherd. David is saying, the Lord is my king. The Lord is my king. And it also describes how humble a shepherd is. It's not an easy job, a shepherd. It's not like a 9 till 5, grind away, get up. You can have your holiday there. No, it's 24/7. It's all the time, isn't it? Because the sheep need constant care and attention. It reminds me of when Jesus says, I know my sheep and my sheep know me. That's in John. And we know him because he's always there. We can hear his voice, can't we? And we know his voice. But one of the things that stood out for me was that the Lord is my shepherd is the price the shepherd has to pay for a sheep. He has to disregard everything he wants in his life. Or she, it could be a female shepherd, I don't know, but everything they want in their life. And they have to actually realise, I have to give up my life for these sheep, for them to be nurtured, for them to grow, for them to have sustenance and so forth. And that's what Jesus does. He gives up his life for us so that we can be nurtured, so we can grow in him. Isn't that wonderful? One of the other things I just suddenly thought of actually was Moses and Jesus. There's a bit of contrast. Moses said, show me your face, God. And what did Moses do? What did God do? He sent him into the rock and he hid his face, didn't he? He turned his face away. God covered his eyes, didn't he? So that he wouldn't die. And then God showed him his back. But on the cross, we see a flip. We see that Christ's face is exposed for the whole world to see. I don't know why I just thought of that. But we have a special connection and relationship with the Good Shepherd. See, often the shepherd would walk past the sheep and they would brush by the sheep just to know that the sheep knows that the shepherd is nearby. So they have a sense of safety. They have a sense of, yeah, he's there. And that's what Jesus does. He sometimes just passes by. We can feel his spirit. It might be a tingly, it might be a laughing sensation. He has different manifestations. But we sometimes know that he just passes us by, because he wants us to know that he is there and that he loves us. Wow, what a tangent. What an amazing tangent. Another thing. Wow, from the Lord is my shepherd. I didn't think we could have so many things from the first verse. I've always read through the first verse of Psalm 1, Psalms 23 and gone, oh, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Yeah, I kind of know what it is, but that's not good. So the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In the ancient Near East, they used to mark the sheep, as we still do. Mark the sheep with a mark. Funny that. To know that that the shepherd knows their sheep. So they would pierce the sheep's ear against a wooden block as a mark. Funny, because what does Christ do? He marks us with his spirit. We've got this verse in Ephesians. It says, in him you were also sealed with the promised Holy Spirit, when you heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation, and when you believed. It's the same principle. If you go out into the countryside and see sheep, you see that some of them are sprayed sometimes, some of them are numbered, some of them have a different colour spray paint. They're marked. Same with us. We've been marked with his spirit. We've been sealed with his spirit as a mark of redemption. Wow. There's so many parallels. And often the enemy will try and cause us to think that the Lord isn't our shepherd, that I shall not want, but he isn't enough. But actually, he is enough, because the shepherd knows all our needs. Even when with agricultural shepherding, the shepherd knows all the sheep's needs. They know when the sheep should move on to the next field. We'll get onto that. This is amazing. I'm just trying to tease a few things out. The shepherd knows the best route to take up the valley to get to the highest peak where the great grass is. There's loads of things. But be reassured that the Good Shepherd, Jesus, he knows all our needs. He knows everything. What a promise. What amazing promise. And I think there's one more thing I want to pull out of the Lord is our shepherd. It's this, that we have a special relationship with our shepherd. David writes this as looking into, well, he writes it as if he's a sheep in the Lord's pen. pen sheepfold. And it's amazing because we belong to him. He purchased us so that we could be in that fold. And in John 10, it says that I am the door to the sheepfold. Here's a picture. The only way and the only reason why Jesus says this, there's probably many reasons, but this is a fantastic reason, is that the sheep door, that the shepherd would become the sheep door. Look at that. And the shepherd would actually stand in the door. Jesus says that I am the door. He would stand in the door and let the sheep in, let the sheep out. He would guard the sheep. He'd let people in and out. That's what Christ does with our lives. He guards us. He protects us because he's the great shepherd. So that's Psalm 1. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. We shall not want because the Lord is near. We shall not want because the Lord knows everything that we need. We don't need material possessions. We don't need to go after these things to satisfy us because we shall not want. He's given us all that we need. And the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want.